No matter how existential crisis-inducing it may be, the fact remains that the Harry Potter series is now over 21 years old. On the 26th of July 1997, The Boy Who Lived took his first steps as a published character, and 21 years later and counting, the world has been transformed by those 7 awesome core books, 8 awesome core films, 1 meh play, countless spin-offs, and a treasure hoard of merchandise that continues to pull in literally billions of dollars. And though the Harry Potter and the Blank book series is long finished, the birth of the Fantastic Beasts movie franchise continues the billion-dollar legacy for the house that Harry built, and it's stunning to think back to those humble beginnings. But even though the main series is all over, it's also interesting to entertain ideas of what might have been had Rowling gone through with some of the alternate ideas she had for the end of her Harry Potter series. Over the years since release, she has embiggened the Harry Potter lore, mostly through Pottermore, but all that expansive mythology might have been set on an entirely different track if she'd killed who she initially intended to, or followed through on some of her more outlandish initial plans. With that in mind, I'm Will for What Culture, back from sabotaging the cryptocurrency market to bring you 10 things that almost completely changed Harry Potter. Number 10. Ron was going to die. Although he has had a couple of dicey moments across the series, the brain attack in Book 5 comes to mind, Ron Weasley survived Voldemort's reign of terror to grow up, marry Hermione, and become an Auror, despite having none of the correct qualifications. And although Rowling has confirmed that Ron left the Auror office a few years after joining, the important thing is, from his perspective at least, that he didn't die. Now, before the final book came out, Daniel Radcliffe predicted that either Harry, Ron, or Hermione would be killed off, and indeed would have fit the series' devastating penchant for killing people for effect. And for a while, he actually would have been right. As J.K. Rowling later confirmed, she didn't initially plan for any of the Central Three to die, but she had a change of heart, stating, "Funnily enough, I planned from the start that none of them would die. Then, midway through, which I think is a reflection on the fact that I wasn't in a very happy place, I started thinking I might polish one of them off, out of sheer spite." Now that's some pretty Game of Thrones level she's throwing around right there, but fortunately, she didn't go through with the murder. Number 9. Voldemort's Other Curse. In his final confrontation with Harry, Voldemort poetically gets his chance to kill the boy who lived with the very same spell that rebounded off him as a scar. Now, obviously, Voldemort's plans don't work out the way he'd have wanted, but it could have been very different. According to journalist and friend of J.K. Rowling, Greg Palast, in the alternate ending that the author herself related to him, Voldemort was going to arm himself with a special curse far more powerful and final than the Avada Kedavra, which failed to kill Harry as a child. The spell would have been called forth with the incantation Opungo Mortem Besius, and the account suggests that Rowling had the Dark Lord draw the power of hundreds of Dementor kisses, which he'd have learned to harness and propel from his wand. And get this, the spell wouldn't have just killed Harry, it would have frozen his living being in place, encased for eternity at the moment of Harry's ultimate humiliation and defeat, a terrifying monument to Voldemort's victory for all to see for all time. Now, if I'm being honest, I'm kind of glad this didn't happen, because a big part of Voldemort's character is that he fears death above all else, and having an alternative to death for Harry doesn't really make sense. But the idea of him having a special, super secret spell weapon for the final battle is actually a really cool idea. Still, what are you gonna do? Number 8. Voldemort's parents nearly made an appearance. Towards the end of the Deathly Hallows, as Harry heads into the forest to meet his fate, he's joined by the, well, not ghosts, but you know what I mean, the shades of some of his loved ones thanks to the Resurrection Stone, who cheer him on to march to his slaughter while calming his mind and focusing his will. But according to Palast's alternate ending Rowling told him about, when Harry takes his final journey into the forest, he is joined by the ghosts of Tom Riddle's parents, who steady his nerve and offer their protection to Harry. And when Voldemort clasped eyes on his dead parents, he would have howled as if cut in half and cast his spell, only for the ghosts to fly at him and transform him into a child, as his spell again rebounded off Harry and froze him forever as a child in the protective arms of his parents. Yeah, it sounds a bit crazy, but believe me, we've got crazier coming up later. And to be fair, the idea of Harry meeting Merope Gaunt and Tom Riddle Sr. is actually quite a cool one. Number 7. Arthur Weasley was originally supposed to die. Though he was very gravely injured while guarding the Department of Mysteries by Nagini, Arthur Weasley was saved by the accidental link between Harry Potter and Voldemort, which alerted Harry to his injuries. Grateful, he continued to fight for the Order, survived the Battle of Hogwarts, and had to bury his tragically murdered son. However, J.K. Rowling has confirmed that Arthur was set to die in the Order of the Phoenix, but that she changed her mind because she was already killing off too many father figures, stating, "He was the person who got a reprieve. When I sketched out the books, Mr. Weasley was due to die in book 5. I swapped him for someone else, and I don't want to say who for the people who haven't read it, but I made a decision as I went into writing Phoenix that I was going to reprieve Mr. Weasley and I was going to kill someone else." Number 6. Dudley almost had a wizarding son. Though it ended up being cut from the film, the Deathly Hallows finale sees a reconciliation of sorts between Harry and Dudley Dursley, who extends him an olive branch early in the book. And while it took the additional material released by Pottermore to confirm it, it turned out the pair continued to see each other as they grew, remaining on Christmas card terms. Harry's family would also visit if they were in the neighborhood, but Dudley and Harry would sit in silence as their children played together. However, in a rather poetic and unfortunately removed twist, J.K. Rowling initially played with the idea of giving Dudley a magically gifted child as part of the epilogue. It would have been the ultimate irony for the Dursley family, who were effectively wizard bigots, but in the end, Rowling realized that there was no way any wizarding traits could possibly have survived contact with Uncle Vernon's DNA. Number 5. The original epilogue. The epilogue from the Deathly Hallows is a fairly simple 19 years later flash forward that establishes that everyone's basically okay and that Harry's moved on and has a happy life in the future. However, originally Rowling apparently wrote a much more extensive epilogue with a lot more information on the central clan, including the name of every child born to the Weasley clan in the past 19 years, and generally way more detail on what Harry, Ron and Hermione had got up to and how they'd changed the wizarding world. But rather than dump an encyclopedia of 19 years worth of information on readers, she instead wrote a briefer, more poetic version and then actually wrote the encyclopedia in the shape of Pottermore to fill in far more detail. Number 4. The end of Harry's life. So I saved this one for towards the end because it's just... Okay, check this out. According to Palast's alternate ending, the epilogue would have featured a look at the year 2130, in which a 150-year-old Harry Potter, now the headmaster of Hogwarts and bald with a stringy white beard, was coming to the end of his life. He looks out over the grounds of the school, watching picnickers enjoy the sun on his birthday, and then, get this, Ginny turns out to be a bird. Ginny Weasley is Harry's pet bird. Now, I'll be honest with y'all, this is the bit that makes me think maybe Palast is just a freaking maniac, but he insists J.K. Rowling told him that in one early draft, Ginny somehow transformed into a bird of paradise. Not just an animagus, she transformed herself permanently into a bird somewhere along her and Harry's life together. And she talks to him too, like they're still officially married or something. Apparently Bird Ginny also doesn't age, which is a cool enough perk, I guess, but the sex life must be just terrible. I mean, no kink shaming, but I can't see that working for anybody involved. Anyway, number 3, Lupin and Tonks lived. Even now, it's hard to forgive J.K. Rowling for killing off Lupin and Tonks and turning their son Teddy into an orphan in his infancy, especially after everything Lupin had already gone through. But then Lupin did dare to be sort of a quasi-father figure to Harry, which made him dead meat. Ultimately, the pair were killed side by side in the Battle of Hogwarts, and an ocean of tears threatened to wash away all the ink on the book's pages. But while she deemed killing Ron and Arthur Weasley too devastating, Rowling admitted that while she initially planned to keep the pair alive, she ended up killing them, causing herself a lot of pain. They were ultimately deemed to be the perfect candidates for sacrificial lions, heroically cut down in battle to tell the true cost of war, and it's hard to argue that it wasn't very impactful. Number 2, the original title of the last book. As you probably know if you're watching this video, the final book in the Harry Potter series was called The Deathly Hallows, which makes sense. But for years, the final book was going to be called The Hallows of Hogwarts, which doesn't technically make sense, even though it's a nice title. The problem with that title, of course, was that the Hallows weren't all related to Hogwarts. Even though Voldemort had expressly sought to tie at least some of his Horcruxes to the school, the Hallows really don't have that much to do with the school itself. Rowling revealed this title and said there were others in contention in an interview with Melissa Anelli in 2008, and while there's no suggestion that she'd planned to have all the Hallows linked to Hogwarts initially, the title would presumably have necessitated that much. Number 1. Harry and Hermione were almost a couple. Aside from a brief, raunchy kiss conjured in Ron's imagination by the Horcrux before he kills it with the Sword of Gryffindor, Harry and Hermione don't really come close to getting together in the books. Even though it always felt right that Hermione and Ron got together because of their years of tension, not to mention the bravery of not putting the hero with the girl, J.K. Rowling admits that she probably made a mistake putting Ron and Hermione together. And indeed, she has admitted that Harry and Hermione could have been a better pairing, and that Ron and Hermione were written together as wish fulfillment. Given her open reflection on that, she must have entertained the idea that she was writing against her natural character progression at the time. So somewhere in another universe, there's a version where all your Tumblr fanfiction comes true. And there you have it, folks. 10 things that almost completely changed the end of Harry Potter. Feel free to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and drop a comment down below if you've got a personal favourite thing that you wish had made it in to the end of the series. Also, now that the dust settled on the fact, let me know what you all thought about the most recent Fantastic Beasts movie. I'm really curious to see how opinions are now. Anyway, that's basically all from me. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.